You have no business digging into our family's private matters, Lauren. Some things are meant to stay between a mother and her son. Michael understands the pressure I'm under right now. He knows where his priorities belong, and it isn't with your endless questions about money. That was never yours to begin with. I built everything we have long before you showed up with your spreadsheets and your little consulting firm. If you can't respect that, then maybe you don't belong here at all.
Keep pushing this and you'll learn exactly how quickly loyalty can disappear when someone refuses to fall in line. Hi, my name is Lauren Bennett. I am 29 years old.
The words landed with the kind of quiet finality that made the air in Patricia's dining room feel thinner. I stood there holding the folder I had brought, the one with the bank statements and the loan application Michael had signed without telling me. My hands stayed steady even though my chest felt tight. Patricia sat at the head of the table like she always did during these family discussions, her posture perfect, her expression one of patient disappointment. Michael stood near the window, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the floor the way he did whenever his mother spoke.
I had married Michael 3 years earlier. We met through work connections when my small financial consulting firm helped restructure a struggling property portfolio his family's company owned. He was steady, thoughtful in the beginning, the kind of man who remembered how I took my coffee and asked about my day without being prompted. Patricia had been polite at first, the way people are when they are still deciding whether you are temporary or permanent. Once the wedding happened, the politeness thinned.
It started with small things. Patricia would call Michael late at night about urgent family matters that somehow always required him to drive across town or transfer money from our joint account. When I asked, he would say it was for her medical bills or a short-term bridge loan for the family real estate business. I believed him because I wanted to. Trust felt like the minimum requirement for a marriage.
Then came the health scare. Patricia called one evening while Michael and I were eating dinner. She sounded breathless, said the doctors had found something during a routine scan and needed to run more tests. She mentioned specialists in another city and the possibility of procedures that insurance might not fully cover. Michael went pale. He hung up, looked at me, and said we needed to help. The amount she asked for was significant, more than we had liquid, without touching the emergency fund I had built for the firm.
I asked to see the medical paperwork. Michael said Patricia was private about those things and that pushing would only stress her more. I let it go that night. 2 days later, I found the loan application on his laptop already filled out and signed, requesting funds against our home equity. The stated purpose was family medical support. My name was listed as co-borrower, even though I had never seen the document.
That was the first concrete lie about assets. Patricia had told Michael the family business was temporarily cash poor because of her health costs, and that the only way to keep the company from missing payroll was to use our personal credit. She had framed it as temporary, as something any good son would do without question. Michael had believed her enough to hide the paperwork from me.
I started keeping my own records after that. Every transfer, every late-night call, every vague explanation. The numbers did not add up to medical bills. They added up to payments toward a commercial property Patricia had been trying to acquire for months. A project the bank had already rejected twice for insufficient collateral. She had used the health scare to move money that was not hers to move.
I did not confront her immediately. I wanted proof that would hold up beyond he said, she said. That was when I contacted Thomas Gray. He was a private investigator a colleague at my firm had used once for a client dispute. I met him in a coffee shop 2 towns over so no one would see us. I gave him the dates of the transfers, the property address Patricia wanted, and the name of the specialist she claimed to be seeing. Thomas said he would need a week.
While I waited, the pressure increased. Patricia began calling me directly. Her tone stayed pleasant on the surface, but every sentence carried an edge. She would ask how the firm was doing, then mention how stressful it must be to run a business and still be a good wife. She would say Michael looked tired lately, and that perhaps I was asking too much of him. Once she even said, Some women are better at supporting from the background. I kept my answers short and neutral. I did not give her the reaction she seemed to want.
The health scare itself began to feel rehearsed. Patricia would mention new symptoms in one call and then forget them in the next. The specialist appointment kept getting rescheduled. When I asked Michael for the name of the doctor so I could send flowers, he could not remember. He said Patricia had handled all the details.
Thomas called on a Tuesday morning. We met again at the same coffee shop. He slid a thin folder across the table without small talk. Inside were medical records showing Patricia had visited her regular physician twice in the past 6 months for routine checkups. No scans, no specialists, no concerning findings. There were also bank records showing the medical transfers had gone straight into the operating account of Bennett Properties, LLC, the company Patricia controlled. The most recent payment had cleared the exact amount needed for the down payment on the property the bank had previously rejected.
I sat with the folder in my lap for a long time after Thomas left. The betrayal was not just the money. It was the way Patricia had used Michael's loyalty as a weapon against me, and the way Michael had chosen to keep her secrets rather than tell me the truth. I drove home, put the folder in the safe in my office closet, and waited for the next family dinner.
It came 2 nights later. Patricia had invited us over under the pretense of discussing next steps for her care. Michael looked uncomfortable the entire drive. When we arrived, Patricia was already seated at the dining table with a stack of papers in front of her. She did not waste time with pleasantries. That was when she spoke the 4 sentences that ended whatever fragile peace we still had.
I placed my own folder on the table beside hers. I did not raise my voice. I simply said I had hired someone to verify the medical situation because the numbers did not make sense. Patricia's face changed for a fraction of a second before the mask returned. Michael looked at the folder like it was something dangerous.
Patricia leaned back in her chair. You went behind our backs and hired a stranger to spy on your own family. That tells me everything I need to know about where your loyalties actually lie. I kept my tone even. I went behind your backs because you lied about assets and used a fake health scare to pull money out of our marriage without my consent. That tells me where your loyalties lie.
Michael finally spoke. His voice was quiet. Lauren, this is my mother. She needed help. I was trying to protect her from stress. By lying to me about our money and forging my name on loan documents, I asked. He did not answer. Patricia stood up. She walked to the sideboard, poured herself a glass of water she did not drink, and turned back to face me. Her next words were delivered with the same calm, almost gentle tone she used when she wanted to sound reasonable.
You are clearly not well, Lauren. All this suspicion, this need to control everything. Michael has been worried about you for months. We both have. Perhaps it would be best if you took some time away from the firm, away from these decisions you are clearly not handling well. We can manage the finances until you are feeling more like yourself again.
The suggestion hung there. She was not yelling. She was offering a solution the way one might offer soup to someone with a cold. Michael stayed silent beside her. In that silence, I understood the full shape of the trap. If I fought, I was unstable. If I agreed, I would hand over control of everything I had built. If I left, I would be abandoning my husband when his mother needed him most. I picked up my folder. I looked at Michael one last time. He still would not meet my eyes.
I'm not taking time away from my firm, I said. And I'm not co-signing anything else. Whatever you two decide to do with Bennett Properties, you will do without my name or my money attached to it. Patricia smiled small and cold. We'll see how long that lasts when the pressure really starts.
I walked out of the house. Michael did not follow me to the car. I drove home alone, parked in the driveway, and sat in the dark for 20 minutes before I went inside. The folder with Thomas's report sat on the passenger seat like a loaded question I had not yet decided how to answer.
The next morning I called Jennifer Walsh, my senior associate at the firm. I told her I needed her to pull every file related to Bennett Properties and to flag any transactions that touched our joint accounts. She asked if everything was all right. I said I would explain later. She did not push.
That afternoon, I received an email from Patricia. It was short. She wrote that she had spoken with Michael and that they both felt it would be healthier for everyone if I stepped back from any financial involvement in family matters until I had spoken with someone professional about my trust issues. She signed it with her usual elegant script.
I forwarded the email to Thomas and asked him to keep digging. I also called Amanda Foster, the attorney who had handled the firm's incorporation. I told her I needed to understand my options for separating finances in a marriage where one spouse had signed documents without the other's knowledge. She said she could see me the following week. That night, Michael came home late. He stood in the kitchen doorway for a long time before he spoke.
"She's scared," he said. "The business is in trouble and she didn't know how to tell me without making it sound like failure." "She told you she had a serious medical condition that required money we don't have," I said. "That wasn't about the business. That was about getting you to do what she wanted without asking me." He rubbed his face with both hands. "I didn't know how to say no to her. You said yes to her by saying nothing to me."
We stood there in the kitchen with the refrigerator humming between us. Neither of us moved to touch the other. The distance that had been growing for months felt suddenly physical, like a piece of furniture we had both agreed to stop walking around. I went to bed alone that night. Michael stayed on the couch. In the morning, he was gone before I woke up. There was a note on the counter saying he had an early meeting at the property site, and that we would talk later.
I made coffee, opened my laptop, and stared at the calendar. The appointment with Amanda was in 6 days. The audit Jennifer was running on the Bennett files would be ready in 3. Thomas had promised additional records by the end of the week.
I did not know yet what I would do with any of it. I only knew that the version of my life I had been living, the one where I trusted the people closest to me to tell me the truth about money and health and loyalty, was already over. The only question left was how much more I was willing to lose before I stopped pretending otherwise.
The next morning I went to the office early. Jennifer was already at her desk when I arrived. She had the audit file ready, thick and tabbed with yellow flags. She did not smile when she handed it over.
"I pulled everything that touched the joint accounts or any Bennett Properties transfers in the last 18 months, she said. Her voice was careful, the way people sound when they are delivering bad news they wish they did not have to deliver. There are 7 separate movements that do not match any medical documentation. The most recent one cleared 3 days ago. It went straight into the operating account for the new property acquisition."
I opened the file on my desk and read. The numbers were clean and merciless. My husband had authorized 3 transfers from our joint savings in the past 4 months, each one labeled family medical support in the memo line. None of them matched any hospital or specialist billing. One had cleared the exact deposit amount Patricia needed for the property the bank had already turned down twice.
Jennifer stood in the doorway a moment longer. "Lauren, if you need me to loop in anyone else at the firm, or if this is heading toward legal, just say the word. But I'm not comfortable staying silent on transactions that look this off." I thanked her and told her I would handle it. She nodded once and went back to her desk. The distance between us had already started. She was protecting the firm, and I could not blame her.
By mid-afternoon, Patricia called the office line. My assistant put her through before I could stop her. Patricia's voice came through the speaker, warm and concerned, the same tone she used at holiday dinners.
"I heard you and Michael had a difficult evening," she said. "I wanted to check on you, Lauren. Stress like this can make anyone see threats where there aren't any. Perhaps we should all sit down together with someone neutral, someone who can help you understand that family sometimes has to make choices that feel hard in the moment." I kept my answer short. "I already have the documentation, Patricia. The transfers did not go to any doctors."
There was a pause just long enough for me to hear her draw breath. Then the warmth dropped out of her voice. "You really are determined to destroy this family from the inside, aren't you?" Michael has always been too soft with you. He lets you question everything. I should have stepped in sooner. She hung up before I could answer. That night, Michael came home after 10. He looked exhausted. He set his keys on the counter and stood there like a man waiting for a verdict.
I saw the audit, I said. I had printed the key pages and left them on the kitchen table. 7 transfers, none of them medical. You signed my name on 2 of the loan applications. He rubbed the back of his neck. She told me the business would fold if we didn't move fast. She said the health thing was to keep the banks from asking too many questions. I thought once the property closed, we could straighten it out.
You thought lying to me and forging documents was the way to straighten it out. He finally looked at me. She's my mother, Lauren. She raised me alone after my father left. She built the company from nothing. When she says she needs me, I can't just say no. I pushed the printed pages towards him. She needed you to steal from our marriage so she could buy a property the bank already rejected, and you helped her do it.
He read the top page, then set it down without comment. The silence stretched until it felt like another person in the room. I'm moving some things to my mother's tonight, he said finally. Just until we figure this out. She thinks it would be better if we had some space. I nodded. I did not argue. Arguing would have meant I still believed there was something left to negotiate.
After he left, I went into the spare room he used as a makeshift office. I was not looking for anything specific, I just needed to move. His desk was mostly empty, except for a stack of old mail and a shoebox he had never unpacked after we moved in together. I opened the box.
Inside were the usual things. Old photos, a watch that no longer worked, a few letters from his father he had never shown me. At the bottom was a single envelope with Patricia's handwriting on the front. It was addressed to Michael and postmarked 6 months before our wedding. I sat on the floor and opened it. The letter was 2 pages, written in a careful script. She did not waste time with affection. Michael.
I know you think Lauren is different from the others. She is organized and she asks the right questions. That is exactly why she is dangerous. Women like her do not join families. They audit them. They wait until the papers are signed, and then they start counting what belongs to them. I have seen it before.
The company is everything we have. It is the only thing that will still be here when I am gone. I need you to protect it. Do not let her put her name on accounts you cannot control. Do not let her see the real numbers. If she ever asks too many questions, remember that blood comes first. I raised you to understand that.
If you marry her, do it on your terms. Keep the account separate. Keep the decision separate. And if she ever tries to pull you away from what we built, you will know what you have to do. I love you. I always have. Mother.
I read it twice. The second time, the words did not blur. They stayed sharp. 6 months before the wedding, she had already decided I was the threat. The health scare, the forged signatures, the late-night calls, the pressure on Michael to choose, all of it had been planned around the idea that I would eventually start asking the questions she did not want answered.
I folded the letter and put it back in the envelope. My hands were steady. I was not angry in the way I expected to be. I was simply finished. I called Thomas first. I told him I had additional correspondence and asked if he could verify the timeline on any other communications between Patricia and Michael. He said he would have something by morning.
Then I called Amanda.
I left a message saying I needed to move the appointment up and that the situation had escalated to documented forgery on joint accounts. She texted back within 10 minutes and offered the next afternoon. I did not call my husband. I did not call Patricia. I sat on the floor of the spare room with the shoebox beside me and the letter in my lap until the light outside the window changed from dark to gray.
The version of my marriage I had been protecting was already gone. The only thing left was to decide how cleanly I was willing to cut it away before it took anything else I had built with my own hands. The meeting with Amanda happened the next afternoon in her office downtown. She read the letter, the audit summaries, and the loan applications with my signature that I had never seen. She did not offer sympathy. She offered options.
You can freeze the joint accounts today, she said. You can demand mediation on the forged documents. And if your husband will not agree to separate the finances cleanly, you can file for legal separation on the grounds of financial misconduct. It will not be fast and it will not be quiet, but it is documented.
I signed the paperwork to freeze the accounts before I left her office. Thomas called while I was still in the parking garage. He had cross-checked the letter's date against phone records and emails Patricia had sent Michael in the months before the wedding. The pattern was consistent. She had been preparing him to keep me outside the real decisions from the beginning.
That evening, I called my old college roommate, Claire Donovan. We had not spoken much since the wedding. She listened while I told her what the letter said and what the audit showed. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time. "I don't know what to tell you, Lauren," she said finally. "This sounds like something you need to handle with your husband and his mother. I can't really get in the middle of it. I hope you figure it out."
I thanked her and ended the call. The distance was already forming. People who had once been easy to reach were now careful about how much they were willing to hear. 2 days later, Patricia came to my office. She did not call ahead. She walked past the receptionist and stood in my doorway in the same tailored black coat she wore to every important family event. Jennifer saw her and stepped out of her own office, but did not come closer.
"I assume you have had time to think about the damage you are doing," Patricia said. Her voice was low and even the same tone she used when she wanted to sound like the only reasonable person in the room. "Michael is at my house. He is exhausted. He cannot keep defending you to me while you continue to attack the only family he has left." I stayed seated. I did not invite her to sit.
"I have the letter you wrote him before the wedding," I said. "The one where you told him to keep the accounts separate and to remember that blood comes first. I also have the audit showing every transfer that was never medical. And I have the loan applications with my name signed without my knowledge." Patricia's expression did not change. She simply adjusted the strap of her handbag on her shoulder.
"You are never going to understand what it takes to protect what we built," she said. "You count things that were never meant for you to count. Michael sees that now. He understands that some loyalties cannot be negotiated." She turned to leave, then paused at the door.
If you continue down this path, you will find yourself with exactly what you seem to want, an empty house and a business that no longer has any connection to the people who actually matter. I hope that brings you the peace you are so determined to claim. She walked out. Jennifer waited until the elevator doors closed before she came to my doorway.
"Lauren, I think it might be better if you took some time to handle the personal side of this," she said. "I can cover your client calls for a couple of weeks. The firm cannot afford to be in the middle of whatever is happening with the Bennett accounts." I nodded. I did not argue. The pullback was complete.
That night I went home to an empty house. Michael had taken the rest of his things while I was at the office. There was no note. The spare room was cleared except for the shoebox I had left on the floor. I put the letter back inside it and closed the lid.
Over the next week, the legal steps moved forward. Amanda filed the request to separate the accounts. The bank confirmed the freeze.
Michael did not contest it. Patricia stopped calling. The only contact came through Amanda's office, in the form of a single message from Michael asking if I was willing to meet one more time to talk like adults. I declined. Claire sent one text 2 weeks later, asking if I was all right. I answered that I was managing. She did not reply again.
Jennifer kept her word about covering the clients, but our conversation stayed strictly about work. When I returned to the office, she was polite and distant. The firm continued without me in the room. I spent the evenings alone in the house that was now only mine. I went through the remaining joint statements and moved what was left into accounts only in my name. I updated the firm's operating agreements so that no future personal decisions could touch the business. The work itself did not change. The numbers still balanced at the end of each day.
One evening in late fall, I received a thick envelope from Amanda. Inside was the final mediation agreement Michael had signed without contest. The joint accounts were divided. The forged loan applications were noted as withdrawn. There was no requirement for further contact. The document was clean and final. I read it once signed where she had marked and mailed it back the same day.
The house felt larger after that. Not empty in a dramatic way, simply quieter. I ate dinner at the kitchen counter most nights and listened to the low hum of the refrigerator. Sometimes the phone rang and I let it go to voicemail. Most of the time it was nothing important. I did not feel triumphant. I did not feel broken. I felt the particular clarity that comes when you stop waiting for people to choose you differently than they have already shown they will.
Patricia never reached out again. Michael sent one final text 3 months later asking if I wanted the last box of his old mail. I told him to keep it. He did not answer. Claire and I exchanged one more message at the holidays, a short "hope you're well" that neither of us followed up on. Jennifer continued to run the day-to-day operations with the same competence she had always shown. We spoke when necessary and never about anything else.
I kept the letter in the shoebox in the spare room closet. I did not reread it. I did not need to. It had already done its work. It had made the choice simple. Choosing myself did not require anyone else's agreement or understanding. It only required that I stop participating in the version of the story where my name on the accounts meant I owed them my silence. Some people will always see that silence as loyalty. I had run out of ways to give it. Thank you for listening to my story.
If you have ever reached the point where keeping the peace cost more than you were willing to pay, I would like to know what you chose to do next.